Well, it comes with a bit of a strange story. There is a reason 91% of podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. We're also ready to find our people in such a divisive world.
Taylor Swift.
Oh, your mate. You can't hide in long form. Putting something behind a paywall challenges me. Now this new platform exists and it changes everything. Creep into each other's DMs and be like, should we just have a coffee and vibe?
Getting that exclusive creator partnership with Flight.
There's something about the podcasts that Flight Story build that makes you want to wrap around an idea. Every panel or opportunity that I get to say, I will say the same thing, which is...
You're listening to In the Dome with Soph and Belle, two podcast fans turned founders building the home for podcast communities.
We're taking your favourite hosts out of the studio to unpack why they got started, the fandom, the stories, and the connections that make podcasts so powerful.
So powerful that we decided to build a company around it.
Let's get into it.
Now, if you haven't heard...
What haven't they heard?
We famously are putting on Australia's very first podcast fan festival, DomeFest, so do make sure to jump on socials, follow us there. Everything's in the show notes.
And of course, jump on our waitlist at homeofdome.com. You don't want to miss a thing. Now, this episode of In the Dome is going to be a little different. We are still here in the beautiful arm's length a wine bar at Potts Point, but 2025 was such a big year for the podcasting industry. We thought we would bring in one of the pros to unpack exactly what happened in the year that was and what we can expect from 2026.
Today, we're joined by an absolute powerhouse in the podcasting space. Kim Kerton is the head of podcast partnerships at Nova, and she's just recently driven the exclusive creator partnership with Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO.
And on the creator side, Kim is the host and producer of Unemployed and Afraid, a 2-times Australian Podcast Awards finalist, and the host of Something New, but more on that later.
Now, Kim, our meet cute, famously, you did slide into my DMs. Believe you caught wind of what we were doing at Dome after our trip to Tokyo with Red Bull for Red Bull Basement, which is a startup competition. What was it about Dome that caught your attention?
Yeah, I would have seen you on LinkedIn. I spend an extraordinary amount of time on that platform.
Best people do.
Yeah, it's my second favorite platform after podcasting is LinkedIn. Talk about it anytime I can. Maybe it was a piece to camera you were doing. Maybe it was a shot from you guys on camera. But I was like, who are these two? Like this energy that you were projecting from your posts on there just felt really contagious. I haven't been around since like the first podcast ever came into the world and have been, I haven't been part of that club. Spent quite a lot of time self-learning and self-growing and self-developing my network. So I was very comfortable and familiar with just random reach outs, connecting with people who were passionate about it. And I know how helpful it was for me when I was really deep diving into podcasting. Like the people who brought me in and shared their knowledge with me were pretty game changing. I wasn't part of a network at the time when I was learning about podcasting, so I had to bust doors down. When I saw you guys having a crack. And coming into this industry with an energy of positivity, not like, oh, look at all these things that are being done wrong, let me come out and do it better. It was just like this genuine love. That's what brings everybody together, regardless of if you've been there from the beginning, and that desire to see great things for this medium. I got that from you guys straight away.
You describe yourself as that podcast strategist with a commercial twist, but we want to catch the domies up for people who ask you, what is it that you do? How do you usually explain that?
I look for the opportunity for growth in podcasting. So not necessarily just the content growth and the audience growth, although that is part of what I look at, but I look for the opportunity to make positive impact through the medium of podcasting, and positive impact often looks like a business commercial approach. If you're a creator, you're working hard, maybe you're building a big audience, you're probably not getting paid as much as you would like to. I sort of try to break down the opportunities commercially to be like, yes, this is the angle you could go, this is the angle you could go, but not just with the product that exists, but the products that could exist around it. So, have you thought about a product extension into this place or a community extension into this platform? Or, could you take the content that you have and make something new out of it to be able to reach another audience? Finding the ideas for how brands can live into content and how to make money out of nothing a lot of the time.
Podcasting as opposed to radio, why did you make that choice?
Well, it comes with a bit of a strange story. So,
as most good things do.
Genuine. I was an early adopter of the Great Resignation, which was not a good thing to be an early adopter of. It's not like I was first picking up an iPhone. I was like, let me quit my job. But I had spent a collective 13 odd years in commercial radio, and commercial radio has often evolved itself to speak to what the audience wants. So, we became social, we became podcasting, we became all of these other things, fairly organically. I was in a role as the head of a branded content division in Sydney for a network, lots of of amazing people that I got to work with every day, just a lot of intensity, like adrenaline-based, deadline-driven chaos. And I just hit a wall in the late quarter of 2019. I was like, I'm just done.
Yep.
And I just need to stop. You can try to find a reason for it, to be like, it's that thing, or it's that person, or it's that collective. You can find the excuses for why it might be, but like I just knew in my heart I was done.
Yeah.
I needed some space to figure out what it was that I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, who I was as well. Decided to leave my big job that I'd worked so hard to get and maintain. Walked out the door in 2020, like January, early January. I'd given myself 6 months.
Great time to make a big life change.
Yeah.
Great time. You thought, this is it for me this year. This is the biggest change of 2020.
Product market fit, timing, like that's what I'm known for with this. Yeah, really well done. I give myself like 6 months of savings and I was like, I'm going to be golden here. Like this is fine. I'll take 3 months. I'd booked in yoga teacher training. I was like, heal inside out. Let's do that.
Eat, pray, love. Let's go.
Yes, classic. Working with a coach, getting my values aligned, like really, putting effort in it. And my thought was I would maybe go build something up part-time as a business owner. My parents have been business owners their whole life. So I think it was like in my blood. So that's what I wanted to explore. Everything fell apart. I couldn't get a job, no matter how hard I tried. I had so much experience. It was just like there was no opportunity. I had to leave Sydney, go somewhere cheap and cheerful and think about my life and try to like build it back up again. I started a direct-to-consumer homewares brand and making ceramics.
Oh, wow.
I'm a commercial being. I cannot do anything without trying to make money out of it.
Yeah. It's a good way to be.
It was a grind, but I sold out all the time and I was building up a really strong following and it was going great. I'd sit at the table, my big table, building plates, bowls, cups, everything, just like over hours and hours of podcast content while I was doing it. Because my hands were busy, headphones were on, and my love of audio like just does not go anywhere. So I was really starting to like by osmosis analyze how I was feeling with what people were saying and what irritated me. Certain cuts or certain styles don't really land with you, or ways that information is framed. And what I loved, what I really resonated with, I just sort of started thinking about it like that. And because I was listening to a lot of business podcasts, because I was trying to encourage myself to, work into this business space, I felt there was a huge missing piece of the conversation, which is the emotional side of everything you go through. That fear of putting yourself out there, the having to face the embarrassment of it all. And it is embarrassing. And I was facing a lot of embarrassment at that time because I'd left my great job and all of a sudden everything had changed and like, okay, I'm a ceramicist now. Yeah. Like we're doing this. And so there was a lot of business owners kind of yelling back from over the mountain. Like, yeah, it was hard, but like then we got this break and here we are. And I was like, no, I'm going to need to stay in the hard bit because that's where we are. That's what's happening here. I thought, well, why not? I've got time. Like, why not start a show? I sort of had a little bit of handle on podcasting, but then I had this moment of just, wow, this is such an engaging medium. Let me just try to see what I can do here. I had a great friend who had worked with previously. His name's Darcy Milne. He owns Pro Podcast Productions. He spent time with me and encouraged me. He said, like, why not? Why not just do 6 episodes? Don't put any pressure on yourself. You don't have to start the next, weekly podcast that goes forever. Why not just form your concept and get started with 6 episodes? That was my plan. The first time I interviewed and the first time I sat there and pulled together a narrative and held space for somebody in interview, I was hooked, completely hooked on the medium. And then by the act of like uploading it, seeing the analytics, seeing what's coming through, I was just rabbit hole after rabbit hole of knowledge.
It's important context because you don't just bring the commercial strategist. You are the host, you are the producer, you are the ceramicist. There's a wealth of experience that you bring to this space, which is why we're so lucky to have you here to, talk about these massive moments of such a big year of podcasting, because it has evolved so much in such a short time, and you've really been at the front foot of it all. So I think without further ado, we should get absolutely right into it. Now that we have established you as the podcast guru that we know and love, we want to go through the top 5 moments with you to discuss and unpack the big moments of this year and why it was so pivotal to the podcasting space. And to kick things off with number 1, and this is cheating a little bit because I think this did start at the end of last year in the US, but this year, the Australian federal election, it played out on the TVs, on our papers, but really prominently in our ears through podcasts. We had the Prime Minister and the opposition leader go on many of Australia's biggest shows from, It's a Lot with Abby Chatfield, Big Small Talk, Straight Talk with Mark Burris, Mamma Mia's No Filter. I want to hear from you. Why do you think podcasting was such an effective campaigning tool?
I think it comes back to the premise of what podcasting stands for and why it's so unusual. It is completely democratized as a medium. Anybody can pick up a microphone and have their voice heard. And if they can find a community, they can grow and they can make impact. And it is completely decentralized as part of that as well. So it's accessible everywhere. You can create a movement that's from the ground up. We were ready for that as a society, like podcasting having its roots fundamentally in true crime and storytelling in that way. I think we were all really ready for hearing from voices that like reflected who we were, no matter who that person was. And, just like in society, sometimes there's some voices that are reflected that you're like, wow, I wish that guy wasn't there, but I really love that guy over there because that's somebody that feels like it's representing me. Unfortunately, it took a little time for everybody to take notice of how powerful that was. I think there's a lot of jokes about podcasting and podcasters in that premise of
there's too many.
There's too many. The bros go for a beer and all of a sudden we're so funny. Let's start a podcast. But, all that aside, it is a space in which people can share ideas and you can be yourself. Like, how often in life do we have a conversation with others where like I'm completely engaged with you. I don't have my phone. We are having a deep conversation and we are holding space for each other. And so therefore, when you listen to that, you're like, wow, I'm in the middle of connection. I'm in the middle of conversation. There's this medium now that allows us to get really close to political viewpoints, to the people that are guiding our society, to see politicians get behind and go, yes, okay, I see what the people want here. I see that they need more from me, and to show up in that way is really, really powerful.
Is there a correct way for a politician to show up? Like if you were advising, Dutton or Albo, what would you have been saying?
Gosh, I would love that opportunity.
Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah, it really would. I think it's the opportunity to show why they started this in the first place. So not just what they believe people want to hear, but what they believe they want to make impact in. You can't hide in long form. Like you spend enough time with people, it will come out. Yes, you can have your talking points. You can be the best media trained person on the planet, but you will get those insights and that feeling, that human feeling when you're like, I get this. I'm linking this together myself now. I'm not being served the short form version of what you want me to hear.
Yeah, I think that's the power of long form media and podcasting. Like you said, you're actually hearing that connection play out. You're right in the middle of it. It's not manipulated. And I think that's so powerful. And it's so jarring to see that in a political campaign because everything is manipulated and there's an agenda for everything. The second big moment in podcasting this year, we'd love to get your thoughts on, is the rise of Stephen Bartlett's Flight Story. Very, very exciting what they're doing. So they are a media and investment company backing some of the world's largest creators. They have a valuation of, I believe, 400 million now. And we are huge, huge admirers of Flight and everything they're doing and how they're impacting the podcast ecosystem. Georgie Holt, their CEO, has said that she believes that the next billion-dollar media company will be one based on human IP. I would love to get your thoughts on that take and what you think this venture means for the podcasting industry.
Well, full disclaimer, because got to be the disclaimer in there. I work for Nova Entertainment. Nova Entertainment is the Australian representation for Flight Story. So I do have a close relationship with the team. So full disclosure.
Wow, really big hit for the head of podcast partnerships. Who is that again?
Yeah. That's me.
Yes. Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
So, we're just assisting that amazing team with their growth and their impact into Australia as a partner. It has been really wonderful. So, but before that, I have been a huge fan of Georgie and Christiana. I used to work with Christiana in Australia many, many years ago. She's, one of the co-founders, the Chief Revenue Officer. She would walk into a room and you'd listen, you'd pay attention, you'd laugh, you'd learn something. That's always been her style. And so just to see her do this, I'm like, of course, this is so natural. And then through Christiana, I came across Georgie and the work that she's doing. I've never been inspired by a woman more, I think, than everything that Georgie Holt says. I'm like, yes, because she leads with empathy. She leads with insight. She leads with growth in mind. Anybody who follows her will see that projection of it. I think what the team are doing is incredibly exciting. They project such a confidence in what they're building that it's very contagious. And I love that for the industry at large because it's like, yes, you can have an opinion, an idea, a belief, and it's embedded in, strong insights. And then you can grow from that with the right team, the right backing, the right people around you. That is the premise that I find incredibly exciting about Flight Story. They're a bunch of really passionate people who have found each other and are growing together for the sake of the industry and challenging some opinions. So much insider knowledge is held with individuals that, can only come out in an interview, in a magazine, or or if they write a book, fantastic, we get that. But being able to get access to the people that they're creating shows with, accessing that knowledge is one of the most exciting things for me. There's been a lot of conversation about community, which I know resonates with both of you so well, which is, okay, you have this access to knowledge and information, it brings you together. What's missing as part of that is coming together around that knowledge and finding your people. And I think we're also ready to find our people in such a divisive world that we live in. Yep. And we often can't find that in social media spaces. It's harder to find. But there's something about the podcasts that Flight Story build that makes you want to wrap around an idea. They have, Davina McCall with Begin Again, and, just her premise of bringing people along passionately on the journey of being the best version of yourselves, regardless of what's happened before, regardless of what you're entering in, to have a long and full life and being able to grow again. Like, that's something to get around and believe in. Aside from that, of course, all their investment in technology, being able to test, everything, they're incredibly powerful, creating platforms for, the industry at large to be able to work with. We need to be, quite grateful to the work that they're pushing and growing in. People hang a lot of shit on those who put themselves out there constantly. They love to do it.
Ourselves do especially.
That tall poppy syndrome is far-reaching, and you see it all the time. But at its premise, at its core, what I love about what Flight Story do is they have strong voices. They believe in themselves, and they're finding their tribe, and they're growing things that matter. And I find that very inspiring.
Completely agree. I mean, I'm sure it would have been an absolute career highlight for you as well, bringing them into Nova and getting that exclusive creator partnership with Flight is just absolutely incredible. Would love to just hear a little bit about that process and how that partnership came about.
Well, I can take absolutely no credit for that, apart from being the biggest cheerleader in the background I possibly could, because
that ends up being a really important role, though.
Absolutely.
People don't understand that world the way that someone like yourself would.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Kate Murphy is the leader of the Create function at Over Entertainment. She's been there for quite some time and has seen some of the biggest pitches that you can imagine, and has been behind all of those. It was Kate and the team and all of the rest of the team as well, the content side, the business and marketing side. Everyone came together to find the right solution. It's been very clear over the years that they are an independent media company. So our job was to find that, as Christiana so eloquently says, the 1 + 1 = 3. So the process was, what do we think is actually wanted here? What's going to make both sides grow together? And how is that going to be both profitable but also career highlight, growing, information sharing in terms of partnership? There's a number of measures that go into a great partnership, and each side making money is only one of them. It's a very small part of it. Are we ideologically aligned? Is there ambition, that matches each other? And, I think that was was a great part of the discovery process, and figuring out, how do we demonstrate that we are in that headspace? We want to push and we want to learn and we want to grow. The process was, as you can imagine, intense, and the pitch was absolute fire. It was a real carry-on, and it was a wonderful process to go through. So we were really honoured to get that.
It's an honour, but it's also such an incredible accomplishment for you and the whole team. And I think that if you are wanting to grow with the right people, you're working with a company that have, head of experimentation and failure. You're in the right company. So it is really exciting. Taylor Swift.
Oh, your mate.
My best friend. Taylor Swift sent the world into an absolute spiral when she made her triumphant return to media and interviews, appearing on her now fiance's podcast, New Heights. They broke YouTube's record for most concurrent live viewers. They did a 2-hour interview, and, the biggest pop star in the world chose the podcast format as the format that she wanted to use to announce her new album. Big. Whether you're a Swiftie or not.
Huge.
Really, really big. I'd love to know, in your words, what do you think that choice that she made meant for the podcast industry?
We can all take a guess at why she did it. But I think what it speaks to is agency, like the ability to control your words and context and being able to provide context. There's not very many mediums that you can do that on. And podcasting is one of them. You get the opportunity not just to share a piece of news, but you can give background context, future context. You can be yourself in that, and you can show who you are. Being able to have some control over the perception and the connection with the people who love her so much, being able to like make the most out of that experience for her and have it be a warm experience too. I imagine as a human being, probably why the choice was made in a less, lovely kind of frame. Like if my partner had a podcast and, it was huge already and I had the ability to help him grow his business, damn straight I would show up. It's great support in partnership with each other, but it's also a really smart business approach. They knew that the traffic was going to be huge. They knew there'd be a whole bunch of new followers to a show that perhaps they might be aware of and dipping in and out of, but like not super engaged with. So, I think it speaks to like supporting your partner and growing a business together as well. Why wouldn't you? And then why wouldn't you consider it as an entire ecosystem to be like, yes, like it's going to go, onto YouTube here and we're going to cut here and it's going to be a strong publicity approach here and here. That's a smart commercial decision to do as well.
So the fourth biggest moment in podcasting, I think it would be pretty remiss of us not to mention the power of video and how that's actually shaped podcasting entering the streaming services space as well. We've seen some huge deals play out. We've obviously seen Netflix and Spotify enter an exclusive partnership there. We've also seen Binge stepping into the space, which is a huge play for the Aussie network. Did you anticipate that shift of podcasts showing up in that streaming space?
It's a tough question to answer because I remember reading the article, back in, I can't remember what it was. It was like the Q1 report of Netflix on their investor call, and they were asked about podcasts. He had said on the investor call, yes, absolutely, video, podcasts are part of their future. So I think it was anticipated from that level that it had been talked about. It's a logical step. There is so much consumption and joy that comes from watching a podcast. It's not for everybody, and it doesn't diminish that so many of us still consume audio, and you actually physically can't have a podcast without audio because like you're listening to something even if you're watching something. I love it for the exposure for the medium. I love it for the potential for creators. I don't think it's the be all and end all. I don't think it's like, wow, like we've made it as an industry. I think it's just another arm that's come off, the side, and is wonderful for the people who are consuming it. And, perhaps for people who haven't really been that close to it or haven't trialed a video podcast, to see like, what's the experience like to watch this, or maybe watch it in tandem with a partner, just to like enjoy a little bit of banter if it's something more light. What the counter that I have to that is, as I understand it, I'm sure this isn't the case, maybe moving forward, but in those early deals, the deal was that it wouldn't be available then on YouTube.
Yes.
So what I find really challenging about that is the democratization of content that podcasting is so fantastically known for, and I think is such a unique thing. There's no barrier to entry, and particularly when it comes to sharing knowledge that hasn't maybe been as accessible for people. Think about really strong parenting content or really strong psychology-based, data-led, insightful knowledge that are helping people be better or create better humans or like whatever they're needing to do. Being able to have that for free is incredibly important. And so putting something behind a paywall challenges me. I felt a bit of a stick. I felt a bit of what do you mean you're taking it off video? Like, is the deal big enough for the creator that the loss of that income from YouTube as well is being made up here? Is the profile payoff better? That's the only area of this incredible evolution that I'm challenged by.
I completely agree with you that you do lose a bit of that democratization, and if it is that paywall, it's it's not on YouTube, and then is it not on Spotify? If it's Binge, or do you lose a bit of that magic that podcasts have? But at the same time, to the consumer, podcasts have been in the mainstream for a while. We are now seeing it be adjacent to the movies and TV shows, which also brings me to number 5. We are now seeing the critical perception of podcasts be in that mainstream, which we haven't seen. Bringing us to the 5th big moment of the year, which is for the first time ever, the Golden Globes announced the Best Podcast Award. The real first official recognition of podcasts among those core entertainment mediums like TVs. and movies. Do you think that this is a pivotal moment of podcasting right now, or is this overdue? Was this a long time coming?
I mean, I think sometimes like public recognition like that is always overdue. Something has to be around and people have to be comfortable with it for a long time for something to become mainstream. I think it's wonderful for the creators that have been able to be part of that, to be recognized in that way. Again, I got to have the other side of it, which is when it comes to who is eligible, when it comes to who is platformed, there's not as many women in podcasting that are platformed in the same way that a lot of men are. And I think there's a lot of great people working really hard to change that. Yeah. We want to see more voices like raised up, Black voices, you know, like voices from the trans community everywhere. I'm consciously aware of the systems that are around these sorts of things and wanting to see there's growth there too. This medium, this gives us access to the people we all want to learn from, the people that we choose as individuals to learn from, and that is a highly individual choice who you put into, you know, your ears or on your television to engage with. I'm cautiously optimistic that we won't bring that down to a small subset.
Cautiously optimistic is the right term for it, particularly because I don't know if you've seen the nominees, but your point about, you know, independent voices is really, I think, important because half of the 6 nominees are previous Hollywood actors, which to me is really exciting. And I'm big fans of Good Hang and Armchair Expert and all the things, but it's great that they are going into this Golden Globes arena around all the Hollywood stuff. But is that the only sort of podcast that will be recognized? And I think for the inaugural nominees, it is an interesting first pick.
Couldn't agree more. And I think it's about being curious about those choices. Yeah. We do have an opportunity with this medium in particular that it doesn't just become more of the same in a different way. I listen to a lot of pods that are just like yap, fun, silly. We love that. But there is also the other side of it, which is this stuff makes a positive impact. There's a lot of research being done in pockets around the world of what's the actual life impact of somebody being able to access that specific type of information in a way that they couldn't do before. Everything that I consider is like slightly coloured with that to be like, yeah, but are we really thinking about the potential of this medium?
The industry has just gone strength to strength this year, and it's been so exciting to see it all play out. And I think we've done a pretty good job here to wrap that up with 5 top moments. But I do want to switch gears a little bit. Now I want us to be thinking about the year to come. What do you think are the biggest trends that are going to play out that we're going to continue to see? And for people listening at home, it might be more emerging podcasters, sort of what are the biggest opportunities they should be looking for?
Oh my God, I could do a whole hour on this.
Big question.
It is a big question. Yeah, reset, start again. I think multi-platform is the word that needs to be considered, whether it's for brand or whether it's for product. I feel cautious saying that because I also believe that can be really off-putting to podcasters who are just getting started. And, you know, the time gone by where it was okay to just have a microphone in your wardrobe under your blanket and grow a show. It's really affordable. That's really accessible for a lot of people. When I talk about multi-platform opportunities, I am conscious of those people that I don't want them to feel like, wow, I couldn't start a podcast now because I would have to have a strong brand, the perfect audio. I'd have to have a video version. I'd have to understand how to run something on YouTube as well as learning how to run it on the hosting platforms. I have to have a good social media person who helps with clips and cuts and discovery. I have to also create a Substack, and then I have to have a WhatsApp group. If you go right back to like my thoughts about small business and how, you know, we're like over the mountain, hey, this is great, look how successful this is. And then the person on the other side is being like, yo, Queen, what the fuck is Bass?
Yeah.
Like there's such a big gap. You've got your show concept. You know what you want to do. And you know that it's a podcast at its heart, but then where should it live and where is your energy best spent? I think more conversations around that's going to be really interesting. I think you'll probably see some breakaways, shows that just only play in the video and the audio extension space, and then you're going to have the ones that are really going to focus on Substack, and it's going to be written content and with voice notes. Is that not necessarily a podcast at its purest form as well? Like, you know, I think the industry is super challenged by this desire to name something, to label something and be like, well, what is a podcast? What isn't a podcast? For right now, that hopefully the trend for next year is going to be, can we all just chill and just call it a podcast for a bit, like just call it a show, call it whatever you want, but call it a democratized piece of content that's designed to reach with an audience for a core purpose, and that may live in many places. For brands in that space as well, it's really important to consider that. I live in a world where when we're dealing with agency partners or, you know, budgets for investment into this space, naturally, I'm hugely passionate about our industry being bank. I want everybody to be making money because that makes jobs. And, you know, when I decided I wanted to come into a network environment, I was working for myself for some time. I was a consultant for some time. I wanted more out of my podcast career. And so I was like, where can I go? What can I do? Looking at the landscape and seeing 6 jobs at a senior level in podcasting, I was like, gulp, big gulp.
Wow.
Like, that's sad and scary. And am I going to have to now go move to London or the US? And I have a pug and I'm not leaving her. So I've got to stay in Australia. Where are the jobs and where is the growth? Every day I work with incredible brands who are often giving their audio budgets to invest in podcasting and looking at audio lines and all like audio integration. So there's the dynamic ad insertion approach, the sponsorship approach, the integration potential with segments, you know, episodes, all of that sort of stuff, right? But it's coming from an audio budget. Why isn't it now coming from an influencer budget or a creator budget, which is significant? Why isn't it coming from a social media budget, which is significant? Why isn't it coming from a video budget, which is significant? Because the medium is all of those things. And it's not easy to integrate and measure across everything in one smooth, clean way. You can't deny it's worth the effort. So I'm hopeful that the trends for next year is that more brands get behind the multi-platform ecosystem of it all and be part of the conversation in genuine ways and let partnerships be real, be long. Find the shows that resonate with the audience and be part of the conversation and do that across multiple platforms.
Can I just ask on that? What do you think is the unlock for brands to actually take that holistic approach with podcasting and realize, oh, podcasting means it can exist in this way, and talk to all these different subsets of people? Those conversations you're having with brands and how are you sort of closing that education gap?
Every panel or opportunity that I get to say, I will say the same thing, which is put somebody in your business with podcast in their title. And I know that's a really challenging thing to say in a year where our industry has faced not just podcasting, media, marketing, advertising has faced a lot of redundancies. It's like, yeah, you hire more people. Like, okay, Kim, thanks for the advice. Having somebody in your business who really understands this medium and obsesses over it and obsesses about where things can live and where communities can happen and where things can grow, I think that's really going to be powerful. Hopefully, agencies and others are putting people who understand podcasting as its own medium, multiple stream within their business to unlock that opportunity at its whole.
It really is an ecosystem. I think Spotify reported recently that almost 2/3 of podcast listeners find hosts much more trustworthy than influencers. And I just don't think that is reflected in the money and the budget's allocated to those various spots. So it is.
I agree.
I think you're absolutely right.
Challenging to measure. You know, it's a lot easier putting some money in video and content creation and then seeing how it performs and then being able to see, you know, conversions off that. That's an easy ecosystem. I think there's a lot of cool businesses out there now doing their best to try to bring that together, but it's messy. Like, and it requires constant education. Like, I learn something new every week. I'm like, oh, great. Everything I ever thought is wrong because now this new platform exists and it changes everything. You know, you've got to be willing to be flexible on that. But it would be remiss of me not to mention community. You know, it's why I was so interested in what you were doing. You already feel community, like that parasocial relationship with the hosts that matter to you. So how do you bring that into a real space? And how do we do that more often? All 3 of us are part of the Hot, Smart, Rich Aussie Angels. We love just the banter. People feeling comfortable to put themselves in that space. Connection is one of my core values, like real communication and connection. So if we can bring the ability for people to have deeper conversations and use podcasting as the vehicle and community to do that, I think that's going to be interesting next year. We have enough imposter syndrome as women as it is. I've got no time for that. Like, what do you need to know?
Challenge accepted.
Leave it with us. We do always end the show with a listener question. Now, we're being a little bit selfish today, and we have decided to ask a listener question on behalf of the Domies out there. We would just love to get the podcast playbook from you. Rapid fire. What are those top 3 things for someone who's, you know, starting to build out their podcast? How are they meant to sort of retain that community relevance? What would you be saying to pay attention to?
I think the most important thing is think cultural insight first. Everybody starts with a concept in mind. I want to talk about this. What's the cultural insight that backs that in? What are you seeing that this will answer uniquely? And like, be really serious about that. Like, go do the research, the desk research. Like, what are people talking about? What do they want? Like, why why this show and why this show now, thinking about that's really important. Often we can just want to create what we want to create because we're inspired by it. But if you just spend a little bit of time thinking about the people on the other end, who they are, how old they are, what they do, what their life is like, what they're lacking, and go do some cultural insight research around it, your show will be 10 times better. In terms of connecting with your audience, remember that they're there. So often when people are podcasting, they're not referenced, or it's like a general kind of like, hey guys, it's like, well, no, I don't know about you, but like I've never been in a group. Some people do. Some people might watch it on television, but usually it's just me listening to a podcast. So I'm one person. So I think I really remember that you are connecting with one person and they're in the room with you. So think about what it is that they want to know. Break the fourth wall and bring them in as part of the conversation so that community can start really early. Really consider your brand, how it looks, how it sounds, like all of those aspects. Your show deserves to have a marketing approach as well. So, you know, think about how it shows up. Think about the platforms it shows up in. You know, your artwork, it's in the world's tiniest environment, like on your mobile phone screen. So make sure it stands out, and please don't put a podcast icon on it. Get that out. You don't need it. No. We know it's a pod. You're good. So just, you know, stand strong in the title of the show and the brand that wraps around it. Think about how it sounds. Think about how it shows up everywhere it does. It's incredibly hard work. There is a reason 91% of podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. Be willing to suck for a while and just keep going, because it's a creative project and it's also something you find yourself through. So give yourself grace to know that you're not going to be the same person episode 1 versus episode 100. And that's great. That's the purpose of it.
Wow. A lot of takeaways. That's absolutely incredible. Lots there to unpack.
Kim, you have some exciting things in the pipeline.
New show, perhaps?
Oh, I forgot.
Remember that old chestnut?
I will tell you a short story about where I'm at with that, which is, yes, I really miss creating content. I do obsess and think a lot about commercial at the moment, and that by nature means I get a little bit disconnected from the content side of things and the audience side of things. I put something on my LinkedIn being like, I am looking for a business partner, basically, because I did my show, Unemployed and Afraid, I did for 3.5 years on my own. I had an editor for, I think, 10 episodes who helped me, because like, I'm not an editor. I'm not I've had to learn the skills to do the best I could. I feel like I left a lot on the table with that show. I could never get to the focus it required to grow it in the way that it could have. Feel really passionately still about being the best version of ourselves, shining, you know, in a country that doesn't necessarily all love to see people shine, only to a certain point. We know, then snip that beautiful flower down. You guys are so good. And I say this to you all the time, like, to find your person in business, back to like Georgie and CB, found their
to be compared in the same sentence. Oh my God.
They talk about it often, about like the power of the duo. Yeah. When I interviewed them for my show, that's what I got out of it. I really want to find the people that want to see me shine and know truly in their heart that I want to see them shine, and so we can shine together and grow together. I'm hopeful that I can invite that in for 2026, and then hopefully the result of that is a really great and powerful new show.
Kim, thank you so much for joining us in the Dome. This has been such an interesting conversation. It's been a massive year for podcasting, and I think you definitely did it justice. So really, really do appreciate you joining us in the Dome.
Oh, thanks for having me. Anytime, guys. Part 2. Bring it on.
Let's do it.
Kim, where can the Domies find you?
Unsurprisingly, LinkedIn. The other place that I spend all of my time.
That's it.
Yeah, you can find me LinkedIn, Kim Kerton, with a K, Kerton, not like the blinds, which is what I always get.
Important.
Yes.
You know, important to know.
Context.
So yeah, and genuinely slide into my DMs. Like I get back to every message in there. I'm looking for that, you know, connection of like-minded people more and more. I think I really want to build that, and I want to be part of that. Kind of interested in building a show or building a business or building whatever within podcasting. I really want to hear from people who are doing that. I think we don't do it enough. We don't creep into each other's DMs and be like, should we just have a coffee and vibe?
More coffee and vibes this year, I say.
So it's the year of coffee and vibes. I've always said that.
You have, famously.
We're Sophie and Belle.
And I'm Kim.
And we'll see you next time in the Dome. This podcast was recorded on Gadigal land. We would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional owners of this land and the oldest storytellers in the world. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.